Hello everyone, I hope you're having a super day. This video is for Module 5, Creating Advanced Queries and Enhancing Table Design. You can find this on page AC 292 of your textbook. Again, Module 5, Creating Advanced Queries and Enhancing Table Design. For this review assignment, you will need the database called Supplier.accdb. It can be found in the student files within Blackboard. It is a brand new file. All the databases that we used in chapters 1 through 4 are no longer necessary. Everything is brand new starting in chapter 5. So you're looking for the database called Supplier.accdb. Please, if you need to, pause this video to go get that database. Otherwise, if you're ready to get going, just continue watching. I am going to continue to record. I have mine saved on my desktop, but there's no problem in pausing and then restarting it once you get it. So step number 1, let me read the opening paragraph first of all, and there is a typo. Kimberly asked you to create several new queries and enhance the table design for the instructions say vendor database, but should say supplier database. This database contains information about the vendors that Riverview Veterinary Care Center works with to obtain medical supplies and equipment for the center, as well as the vendors who service and maintain the equipment. Complete the following steps. Step 1 is simply telling me to open that supplier database that you just downloaded and get it ready. And here we go. We have two tables, table product and table supplier, that we will be working with today. So step 1 is complete. Step 2, modify the first record in the table supplier table. So I'm going to double click and open that up into datasheet view. Modify the first record in the table supplier table datasheet by changing the contact first name and the contact last name field values to your first and last names. So I come over here to where it says student first under contact first name, and I'm going to replace it with Steve. And student last, I'm going to replace with White. All right, that's all we have to do for step number 2. And at the very end, it says close the table. So now we have our name marked on this database. Step number 3, create a query called QRY supplier name and address that lists the following fields from the table supplier table. So let's go ahead and get that started. Let's go to Create, Query Design, and they want me to use the table supplier for this. I'm going to double click on table supplier to add that to my upper part of my query design. I'm going to bring this down so I can see all of my fields, nothing that we haven't done in previous chapters. Now I do need a little bit more room, so I'm going to use my divider bar between the upper and lower panes here. I get a line with 2 arrows. I'm going to click and drag that down just a little bit, so that I can continue to expand this so that I don't see a scroll bar. There we go. Okay, so it says create a query called QRY supplier name and address that lists the following fields from the table supplier table. They want supplier ID, so I'm going to double click, company, double click, city, double click, state, and zip. It says, after you have created the query, use the auto filter feature of Access to list on the suppliers in NC, SC, and VA only. Use the toggle filter button to remove and reapply the filter. Save and close the query. Well, first of all, what I'm going to do is save it first, because that seems to be the longest part of this entire query. They give us such a long name to name it, but it's QRY. So I hit my save diskette up at the top left. I'm going to give it my name now, or give it the name now. QRY supplier, this is all one word, supplier, name, and address. That's a long name. All right, click OK. Okay, so QRY supplier, name, and address. All right, I'm going to go ahead and run this. And what they're referring to when they say in the instructions, after you have created the query, use the auto filter feature of Access. For any of you that have taken the Excel spreadsheets course, you probably are aware of the filtering feature within Excel. Access kind of has the same idea here. Next to each one of my field names, I have a drop-down arrow, and if I click that drop-down arrow next to state, I can uncheck select all and only check the boxes that I want it to display. And in the instructions, they want NC, so I'm going to check NC, continue to scroll down, SC, and VA. This is known as the auto filter feature. As soon as I click OK, it filters it and only shows me the ones that I checked, which were SC, NC, and VA. Okay? Now, when they say use the toggle filter button to remove and reapply the filter, up on the ribbon, when we created this filter, we now have this thing called toggle filter. If I click on it, it removes the filter. Click on it again, it shows the filter. And you can just continually do that over and over again as much as you want. All right, we're going to save and close, and we have successfully created our first query and completed step number 3. Step number 4, create a query to find all records in the TBL supplier table in which the city field value starts with the letter A. In other words, it only has to start with the letter A. They don't care what follows it. So it could be Athens, Albuquerque, Atlanta, again, as long as it starts with the letter A. So what they're introducing in step number 4 is the wildcard. And in Access, the wildcard is an asterisk. So let's go ahead and create this. So we're going to go to Create, Query Design. Again, we're using the table, Supplier table. A lot of this is going to repeat over the first couple of steps. Again, I'm going to bring this down just a little bit so that I can expand this and see all my fields without having to scroll up and down. All right, so let me go back. I read the instructions quite a bit because I don't know how many of you are looking at the book or trying to just go by my words. But it would be good if you opened up your book to this. That way you can get a full extent of what this is saying. Create a query to find all records in the table supplier table in which the city field value starts with the letter A. Display all fields in the query record set. Okay, so I need to see all of these fields in the when I run it. Now, an easy way to do this, if you haven't seen this before, is if you double-click on the title up here, it selects all your fields, at which point I can click in any one of them, hold down the left side of my mouse, and drag and drop it into the very first column, let go of the left side of my mouse, and all the fields will follow after it. That's kind of a neat little shortcut instead of having to go double-click, 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 double-click. Okay? Either way works. So if you'd rather do it that way and take a little bit longer, that's fine too. All right. Create a query to find all records in the TBL supplier table in which the city field value starts with the letter A. So I'm going to go down to city and criteria, and I'm going to type A, and then next to A, I'm going to type asterisk. A, asterisk. Now, when you tab out of that or click, it will put like in there and put quotes around what you typed. That's fine. Let it do it. It recognizes this as a text field, so it added a few little things there. Now, if I run this, see, I'm seeing Atlanta, Adolphus, Asheville, Athens. As long as it starts with the letter A, the asterisk is my wildcard to say I don't care what follows it. Now, it doesn't have us do this, but let me just explain. If I had done asterisk A, what do you think that would do? Now, of course, there's nobody on here to answer that, but what an asterisk A would do is I don't care what it starts with as long as it ends with an A. So the placement of the asterisk is really important. So pay attention. If it wants it to start with the letter A, you do A asterisk. If it wants it to end with the letter A, you do asterisk A. Of course, if they want it somewhere in the middle, A somewhere in the middle, you would do asterisk A asterisk. So the placement of the asterisks, your wildcards, is extremely important. Okay, so we've done this. We're going to save it, and we're going to call this one QRYA, capital letter A, selected cities. And click OK and close. All right, done with step number 4. Step number 5, make a copy of the QRYA QRY selected cities query using the new name QRY other selected cities. So let's do that first. So I'm going to come down here and right click on QRA selected cities and do copy. Then I'm going to come down to the very, very bottom underneath my report, right click and do paste. And in here I'm going to type in QRY other selected cities. And click OK. All right, now let's continue with this. Modify the new query to find all records in the TBL supplier table in which the city field values are not Boston, Charlotte, or Billings. Okay, so I'm going to right click on this QRY other selected cities to make my change to that one, the one that we just created. When they say the words in or not in, or in this case are not, steps 5 and 6 are referring to what's called a list of values. List of values, you can use either not in or in, depending on what the instructions call for. So for this one, I'm going to go to the city and delete what the criteria from the previous query was. And I'm going to type in not space in open parentheses. This is saying in the results, these are the cities that I do not want to see. Not in, also referred to as a list of values. Okay. Now I simply type in the 3 cities that they do not want to include are not Boston. Then I do a comma to separate the cities. Charlotte, comma, Billings. And then close your parenthesis. Now when I tab out of it, it will put quotes around the cities, again recognizing that this is a text data type, but we don't need to put those quotes in. So we might as well save ourselves a little bit of time in doing so. All right. Now when we run this, under city, the field city, we better not see Boston, Charlotte, or Billings. If we do, that might mean you have a typo, and that's why it's extremely important that we type it exactly as it is in the table. So I run this. I get 17 records, and if I look under city, I do not see Boston, I do not see Billings, and I do not see Charlotte. So it worked. So that's a not in, referred to as a list of values in the textbook. Okay, I'm going to save my work, and I'm going to close it. Now step number 6 is going to use the in, the other part that we can use in a list of values. And this time in the instructions, they actually say list of values. So let me read the instructions for step 6. Create a query to find all records from the table supplier table in which the state value is GA, MA, or NC. Use a, there it is, list of values match for the selection criteria. Display all fields in the query record set. All right, so I'm going to go to create, query design, nothing new here, table supplier. This is kind of a redundant thing so far today. Drag this down. I'm going to resize this box. Okay, they want all the fields, so I'm going to double click, click in here and drag down, and they all follow me. All right, so again, nothing different yet. Create a query to find all records from the table supplier table in which the state value is Georgia and MACA. Oh, by the way, we got to do descending order for company. So I'm going to go to sort for company and choose descending. And this time we're going to go to the criteria for state. And I'm going to type IN this time. Last time we used not in. This time we want to specifically put in. And we're going to do GA, comma, same procedures here, MA, comma, NC. Okay? Really truthfully, the only thing really different here in step 6 is we're using not in, and in step 5 we used in. Both considered list of values. Okay, I think we got it. Let's save this query, and I'm going to call it QRY selected states. Okay, click OK. And when I run this, I better see under state only these three states, GA, MA, and NC. So let's run it. I get 7 records, and sure enough, GA, MA, NC, we did it. Okay, so now I can close this. Okay, the next step, to be perfectly honest with you, is a very, maybe a lengthier and more difficult step. So this would be a good one if you are not fully understanding, that you can continue to repeat, replay it until it finally sinks in. And I'm telling you, the textbook is another great resource, especially for concatenate, which is what we're going to use here. So let me just read the entire instructions and then try to explain what they want me to do here. Create a query to display all records from the table suppliers table, selecting the company, city, and phone fields, and sorting in ascending order by company. Well, let's get that part of the assignment done. So let's go to create. That's nothing new. We're going to go to query design. Again, we're using the table supplier. So definitely a repeat from previous steps. I'm going to drag this down and expand this. Okay, nothing new. Okay, then they want me to include the company, the city, and the phone. Okay, and we're going to sort in ascending order by company. So I'm going to sort for company and choose ascending. Okay, now comes the more difficult part. Add a calculated field named contact name as the last column that concatenates the contact first value, a space, and the contact last value. Concatenate basically means add it together. So we have one field that has Steve in it. We have another field that has Whiteman in it. What I want to do is create a new column, a calculated control that will be Steve space Whiteman, so that my first and last name are within the same field instead of as two separate fields. This is known as concatenate, where you can kind of add two different fields together to get the result into one field. Okay. If, now this tells me it's going to be an if statement. If the contact has a nickname, use the nickname in place of the contact first name in the calculated field. Okay, so this is telling me that if they have a nickname, they want the nickname to be used instead of the first name. So we're going to do what's called an if statement. So we got a couple of things being thrown at us in this particular step. The if statement has 3 parts to it. The if statement says test something. And so what I'm going to test is to see if they have a nickname or not. Now, if they don't have a nickname, I'm going to specify that I want it to do first name, last name. But if they do have a nickname, I want to do nickname and last name. So that's what we're going to do here. And like I said, it sounds complicated, and it may seem like it's complicated, but what's nice about doing a video is you can watch this over and over again until the light bulb goes off and you're like, I got it. But again, make sure you use other resources. This video is not intended to cover everything in the chapter. There's no way I could do that necessarily. So still use the book, use YouTube videos. You can do anything else that you want to get the material if you're not fully understanding it. And of course, then also email me if necessary. So here we go. I'm going to go to the very next column available to me, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to something called build. Build. Now the reason I'm going to build is because it allows me to go to the functions that have been built into Access. You know, if you took spreadsheets, you know there's all kinds of functions in Excel, like PMT function and the if function. Well, Access has functions as well. And the best way to go see where those functions are and to utilize the functions is to come out here into the expression builder. All right. Now here I'm going to click the plus sign next to functions, and I'm going to click on built-in functions. Over to the right, it shows me all the functions that are available, and I'm looking for the if function because I know this is an if. I'm checking to see whether they have a nickname or not, and depending on that, I want it to do 2 separate things. So that's called an if statement. So I'm going to scroll down. They're in alphabetical order, and I'm going to find IIF. Yes, 2 I's. IIF. Okay. Now, before I actually get started with this, I'm going to click to the very left of the first I, right at the beginning, because they want me to call this contact name. So I'm going to type that in. Contact space name colon. Colon is essential. Like remember, in a calculated control, whatever's to the left of the colon is what it's going to name this new calculated field. So you need to have that colon. So they want me to call it contact space name, so I type that in and a colon. All right. Now, again, the book does a really good job on this, by the way. If you don't think the video is doing you service, gosh, that was hard to say, you can certainly go back and look at the book as well. But it tells me to go to the expression, and I'm actually going to delete that expression because I'm going to use another function now to test whether there is a nickname or not. And this one is called the isNull. So scroll down until you find isNull, which means is it blank? Do they have a nickname or not? That's what I'm testing. Now where it says expression for this one, I'm going to type nickname. Now you have to spell it exactly. Trust me. If you put an M instead of an N here and you call it nickname, you're going to get an error message. You want to type it exactly as it is in your field names. And if necessary, look over in your query to see how it's spelled. Nickname. So what we're testing is the nickname field empty? If it's empty, that means they don't have a nickname. Okay? If it is not empty, then we're going to want to use their nickname instead of the first name. Okay? So I know that sounds convoluted and it's probably not it sounds Greek right now. But I'm testing to see if nickname is empty. If that is true, if it is empty, there is no nickname, I'm going to click here where it says true part, then what I want to do is I want to use their contact first. I want them to put their first name. Now, I want a space to be between their first and last name. So I'm going to do space, ampersand. That's your concatenate. That's what we use is in ampersand. It's shift number 7. Space, quote, space bar, quote. This is going to tell it to put a space between the first and the last name. Okay? Space and another concatenate. I'm adding this together. Space, contact, last. Now, it's better to go slow and be accurate than fast and inaccurate. For those of you that wait until 7 o'clock on a Sunday night to try to complete your homework, you make very silly mistakes because you're rushing through it and you're making silly mistakes and losing silly points. And that's why I encourage you to work on these during the week. Do 2 steps one night, do 2 steps the next night, and you'll find that will be a lot better than trying to do all 20 steps in one night. So if it is blank, if that's true, give me the contact first and contact last. Now the false part kind of follows the same thing, but remember we want to use the nickname if it is got a nickname. So here, if it's false, if it's not blank and there is a nickname in there, we want to use nickname, okay, space, ampersand, space, quote, space, quote. Space, ampersand. Again, that quote, quote is to put a space between the nickname and the last name. Then I do contact last. Now, you may have all been jumping through the screen here to say you wanted contact first there. No, I want nickname, okay, because if they have a nickname, I want to use that. Okay? So, let's see how it works. Keep your fingers crossed. So I'm going to click OK. And again, if you think I went too fast through this, you can always rewind it, watch it again, take good notes. But I'm going to click OK. Now, we only know if we made an error by running it, so let's run it. And there we go. All right, now, you don't necessarily have to do this, but what I'm going to do is go back to Design View, and I'm going to add the 3 fields called Contact First, Contact Last, and Nickname to see if this worked. I'll run this. Okay, so there's only 3 people that had a nickname. All right, so if they had a nickname, look at that. It's using the nickname instead of the first name. If they don't have a nickname, it's using the first name. So it looks like it's working. Let's check down here. JJ, yep, JJ Baxter. It's not using the first name, but the nickname. And Jack and Jack. It worked beautifully. So I'll go back to design view. I'm going to delete these 3 fields because it was not asked for in the instructions. And I believe we completed that lengthy step 7. Create a query to display all records from the table supplier table, selecting the company, city, and phones, sorting in ascending order by company. Add a calculated field named contact name as the last column that concatenates the contact first value, a space, and the contact last value. If the contact has a nickname, use the nickname in place of the first name in the calculated field. We got all that done. Now what we didn't do yet is set the caption property for the contact name field to contact space name. Save the query as, okay, so let's do that first. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go to properties and change the caption. I don't think I really necessarily need to do this since I did have a space and that was my fault at the beginning. But so I do contact name here. What I'm trying to tell you was I'm going to close the property sheet at this point, is I had a space here and I should not have. Okay, my field name should not have had a space in it. Okay, save the query. So let's save this hard work. We certainly don't want to lose our hard work here. And we're going to call this QRY company contacts. Click OK. And it does say to run this and to resize the columns as necessary. So resize all your columns, make sure that everything is being displayed, and then we can close it. Good job. Excellent job, everybody. That's a tough step. Very tough step. Step number 8. Create a parameter query to select the table supplier table records for a state field value that the user specifies. If the user doesn't enter a state field value, select all records from the table. Display the company, category, city, state, contact first, contact last, and phone fields in the query result, sorting in ascending by city. Save the query as QRY state parameter. Run the query and okay. So here we go. Let's do a couple of these things first. Get a little bit of that out of the way. We're going to go to create. We're going to go to query design. Again, we're using the table supplier. So nothing new there. Again, I'm going to resize this so I can bring this down. That's pretty common for today. All right, it says to include. Okay, it says display the company. So I'm going to double click on company. Category, city, state, contact first, contact last, and phone. In that order. Okay? Sort in ascending by city. So I'm going to do ascending for city. And that takes care of a good part of it. Okay. Now, it says create a parameter query to select the table supplier table records for a state field that the user specifies. So, let's do this before some of the other instructions here. I'm going to go to state criteria. To do a parameter query, you include a question within square brackets. Within square brackets. Those square brackets are to the right of the letter P on your keyboard. So I'm going to open up a square bracket on the criteria line for state, and I'm going to say, which state this time. Now, you can put whatever question you want. So you could just put state with a question mark if you want, or you can get to more lengthy, but it's totally up to you what question you put within the square brackets, but they must be contained within square brackets. I'm not saying parentheses, I'm saying square brackets. So when I run this question that I put inside the square brackets, so whatever your question was comes up here, which state this time, the instructions are saying try to use NC and see what happens. So I type NC, and it retrieves just the NC states. I got 3 records that match that particular criteria. Okay? So we're pretty much on our way here. However, there's one critical thing we're missing from the instructions. Create a parameter query to select the TBL supplier table records for a state field value that the user specifies. Here's the key right here. If the user doesn't enter a state field value, select all records from the table. Well, watch what happens if, right now, if they don't enter something, they don't get any result. What the instructions are saying, that's not correct. You want them to see all of the records if they don't enter a state. So we've got to do something to fix this so that all records display if they don't answer anything. Okay? So what we do is right before your first square bracket, your open square bracket, we're going to type the word like and then a space. So we've got like, space, and then the question we created. And then at the end, so click at the very end after your closed square bracket, we're going to type the ampersand sign, and we're going to do quote, asterisk, quote. Okay? Now, quote, asterisk, quote means show me everything. Okay? Now, I got a question mark there. I'm not sure how that happened. Okay. All right, so we've got, let me repeat this. Let me go to Zoom so you can see this better. So I've got the word like, space, inside closed square brackets, I have which state this time, the ampersand sign, quote, asterisk, quote. Now, by the way, this is also very detailed in your textbook. So if you need to, you can look it up there. But this is exactly the format that we need. Click OK. So let's try this again now. If I run this, they type NC and hit enter. Yes, they get the NCs. I go back to design view, run it again. Which state? They don't answer this. Last time we got 0 records, but by adding what we did, when they hit enter, I see all the records now. That's exactly what they wanted. Okay? I'm closing this, and I'm going to call this QRY. So I'm going to say yes to saving it. QRY state parameter. And click OK. Wow, those are 2 doozy steps, 7 and 8. Okay, I might only do 2 more steps, and then I'm going to stop, and I'll record part 2 as well. But I'm going on about 32 minutes now, and sometimes when these videos are pretty long, YouTube doesn't like it. So this still has a couple of more steps here. There's a total of 20. Let me get at least half of them done in this video, and then I will record a second video that you can watch as well. Which also kind of nice because it breaks it up, and if something that you need is in step 11, you don't have to watch all the first 10 steps to get to it. So, all right, so step number 9. Create a find duplicates query. All right, this is a special, we have 3 special queries that I think we're going to be creating in this entire review assignment. And the hardest part is to know where they find it, because otherwise the instructions tell you exactly what to do. To find it, we're going to go to the Create ribbon, and we're going to go to Query Wizard. Query Wizard. And they want me to use the Find Duplicates. So I'm going to click on Find Duplicates Query Wizard and click OK. Now, the first step says, which table or query do you want to search for duplicate field values on? The instructions read, create a find duplicates query based on the table product table. So we're going to make sure table product is selected and click next. Then the instructions continue. It says, select product name as the field that might contain duplicates. Which fields might contain duplicates? So they're telling me to use the product name. So I pick product name and throw it over to the right. I got to use the arrow key, or you can double click on it to throw it over there. Click next. See, they're walking us step by step through this. Instructions say, and select the product ID. So double click or use your arrow keys. Supplier ID, price, and units fields as additional fields in the query result record set. Do you want the query to show fields in addition to those? So that's what we just did. Okay. Click next. When you see the check mark, that means we're done, and they want me to save this as QRY duplicate product types. Click Finish. And let me continue reading. Don't panic. It says run the query and then close it. Now here's the key thing. Don't get nervous. Because the table product table does not have any duplicate product name values, running the query should show that no duplicate records are found. And sure enough, that's why we're not seeing anything. Okay? Now, we've saved it, so we can now close it. Doesn't tell me to, but we can now close it. And there you go. Okay? I guess it did say close it a little bit further up. Okay, that was easy. See, we go from two very difficult ones to a much easier one where we're just following a wizard step by step. Okay, let's do step 10. Create a find unmatched query. Okay, so again, we go to create, query wizard, find unmatched. Click OK. Now follow the steps again. Let's read. Which table query contains records you want in the query results? So let's see. Create a find unmatched query that finds all records in the table supplier table. So click table supplier. Click next. For which there is no matching record in the table product table. So the second step, we want to make sure that we select the other table, table product. Click next. Okay, just following the instructions here. This we don't have to do anything on. This is telling me how the two tables are related to each other. Access figured that out for me, so there's nothing for me to do here other than to view the information. So click next. Okay, it says display the supplier ID, so I'm going to double click that, company, city, state, phone, contact first, and contact last. Okay, fields from the supplier table in the query record set. Okay, click next. All right, here's where we're going to give it the name. They want me to call it QRY suppliers without matching products. Okay, click finish. Then it instructs me to run the query if I needed to. It's already there. And then close it. Now, before I close it, I want to point out again, they state again on the very last sentence for step 10, because the table supplier and table product tables do not have unmatched records, running this query should show that no unmatched records are found. That's why, again, I'm not seeing any information here. Close it, and we have completed the first 10 steps in this particular review assignment. Actually, I'm going to do one more step because I can see this won't take that long. Step 11 on page 293, AC 293. Step 11. Create a query to display all records from the table product table. Okay, selecting the product. Okay, so we're going to go to create, query design. This time we're bringing in the product TBL product table. Okay, again, I'm going to expand this down to see all the fields. Nothing new there. Okay. Create a query to display all records from the table product table, selecting the product ID. So I'm going to double click to bring that down. Supplier ID, product name, and price fields. Again, if you know another way to bring those down, if you click and drag them down or you use the arrows, perfectly acceptable, not a problem whatsoever. I like the double clicking method, that's all. Okay, it says, use the top values property to select the top 25% of records. But just before that, it says sort in descending order by price. That is critical because by sorting this by price, the top of my results are going to be the top of the prices. So when they say that they want me to find the top 25%, you've got to do it in descending order. If they had said they want to see the bottom 25%, I would sort it in ascending order so that the smaller numbers were up at the top. But sorting is critical in this particular type of query. This is known as a top values query. Top values query. So sorting it is very important. So we have to follow that instruction carefully. Descending order by price. use the top values property to select the top 25% of records. That is done up here where it says return. When you put your pointer in the white box or even on top of the word return, it indeed says top values. I drop the arrow down and I have a couple of choices that they have given to me. That doesn't mean that I have to use those. If I want the top 10, I can type 10. But in this case, they want me to do the top 25%. Don't click 25. That would be just the top 25. We want 25%. So make sure you pick that particular one down here. Okay. Then we go to run this. And that's what it's showing me, is the top 25% results. Okay. Let's save this one. And we're going to call this one QRY top 25 price. And click OK. And then we can close it. Okay, I'm going to stop at this particular point for this. This is what I would call part 1 of the review exercise for Chapter 5. I will record the following steps that will be considered part 2, and I will provide you both links for Chapter 5's review exercise. But thank you. That will take care of steps 1 through 11, and the next video will cover steps 12 through 20. Thank you and have a great day.